In this video, I want to go over how I created this owl that you see in the picture right over here. And we'll talk about how I created the image initially, how I turned it into a 3D model, and then what changes I needed to make in the Vectric Aspire software to be able to carve it. With that, let's get started. As is often the case, I start out over here in Midjourney and look for what it is I want to look for. And I wanted to look for an owl, and you can see right here, this high resolution, high contrast grayscale prompt is what I use. And once I was able to locate this that I wanted to use, this picture right here, the next thing I did was to go ahead and download this to a file that I could turn into a model in the VistaSculpt software. So with that, that's where I headed over to, was VistaSculpt. In VistaSculpt, remember, there are three ways to create models. You can either load an image from something you previously did, or you can generate your own image using its AI. So I decided to take the Midjourney model and import that now into the VistaSculpt software, and that's what you see me doing here, is just grabbing the image, pulling it into the VistaSculpt software, and then I can take that image and turn it into an actual model. Once the image is brought into VistaSculpt, I have a couple different options. One is I can generate a preview, or I can skip it if I don't want to look at the preview. In this case, I decided to skip the preview. I did want to enhance the image to see how that would look. So I went ahead and took the opportunity to use that process. Once the image was enhanced, I decided to use the enhanced image that VistaSculpt provided me because I liked the brighter eyes and what I was seeing there. At which point then I decided to go ahead and generate a 3D model. My initial model, I decided to take to 100% details and 5 on the depth scale and give that a shot and see how that worked out. Those are often my initial settings that I'll use in VistaSculpt when I'm trying to get a very detailed and dynamic model. So once I got that model and I looked at it, I thought that was pretty good. I went ahead and exported that model so that I could use it in the Aspire software, saved it with a name that I'd be able to know what it was. I often use 3D model, and it will be VistaSculpt 100 detail, 5 depth, so that I know that's the setting that I used. It's just my little shortcut method of knowing what I used in the model. I then decided to go ahead and compare that to a model with a little less depth, or at least a little less detail. I guess I kept the depth at 5, and I brought the details down to 50 just to check that out and see how that would look. You get that warning before, so you don't erase a model before you're ready to. And after that model finished generating, I went ahead and decided to take another look at that. And one of the things I didn't show on this was the putting in the background. I should have done that on the other model, and I came back later and did that. It wasn't critical, so I solidified it by hitting the solidify button. And after looking at this, then I decided to go ahead and export this model. And that allowed me to have both models available in Aspire to see which one I ended up liking better when I import it. And again, I just use the similar shortcut method of 50 detail and 5 depth so that I would know what model I was bringing into Aspire when I decided to manipulate it in Aspire. I then went ahead and tried to increase the thickness and use the button there on the left. Sometimes that gives me some pretty nice results. And so again, I am just trying different elements to see which one I like better when I bring it into Aspire. And in this case, I'll be using my shorthand, but I think I put something in here like increased depth. Or increased thickness. All right, now that I have those 3 models, I'm pretty well set to go into Aspire. Well, the first thing we need to do in Aspire, like in all of these, is to create a new file. And so I'm going to create a file that is, let's see here, let's see here what size I want to make it. we're going to make this piece of wood that I have 12.5 inches high and 10 inches wide. And I have a piece of beech that fits that criteria, and it's also 1.25 inches thick. I'm going to go ahead and zero this off the machine bed since it's going to be a carving. And the reason I want to do that is I'm going to use up the whole piece of wood, and I don't want to have to worry about where I'm Zing from off the top of that. I'm going to go ahead and Z XY here in the bottom left, which is where I like to XY most of the time. I'm going to hit OK. And so now I need to bring in the model that I saved. So now let me import the model. Import a component or 3D model. Okay, I think I renamed it, so we're going to go Owls with Chicks here and see what that model that is. We're going to open that one up. So we got the model here. I'm going to go ahead and scale millimeters to inches. And I'm going to change this, keep everything locked in here. And I'm going to make this 8 inches tall. Now this is a little misleading because you want to see X is in the long way, which is normally Y on my machine. So I'm going to go with that. Let me make this 7.6 right here. 7.5 and see how that works. And we're going to hit apply, center the model, and I can change the size of this later if I want to, position and import. And now we have, I don't need create both sides. I'll take this down to the bottom, hit import. And there we are. That's the model I'm initially importing. I'm looking at it here. You can see that it looks just like a square chunk of wood. It's not really that impressive, and it's not really going to be what I want it to be relative to the carving that I want it to. I want it to look like it's in the trunk of a tree or close to it. So I'm going to need to have these edges be a little more round. And so I'm going to go ahead and have to do a few things. First of all, I'm going to have to add round edges on the sides, and that's the major thing that I'll have to do with this model to get it to look like it's in the trunk of a tree. So with that's what I'm going to do next. Hey folks, the sponsor of this video is myself. And I spend time and energy in trying to make these videos, and I just wanted to take a quick minute to let you know that if you really appreciate these videos, you want to see them continue, I need a little bit of love. Give me a like, a comment, a share. Share with others that might be interested in learning the stuff that I teach in my videos, because it does take quite a bit of effort to put these on. So with that, I'd appreciate that. And so if you like the stuff that I do, go ahead and subscribe right now while you're remembering, because I always forget myself, and hit that all bell and you'll get to see the videos that I produce. Furthermore, what I want to point out is with these longer videos like this, you know that I usually make the project first and I cut it and do all of that first. And so therefore, I have to come back and redo the whole design of the project. So that, keep that in mind, is that I'm walking through this project either the second or third time, but it's all a redo, and it might look just slightly different in its design from what you see when I cut it, because of changes that I'm making in ways that I think about the process might be a little more effective. Now we're getting ready to go through the point where I'm going to turn it from just a chunk of STL wood that I made in VistaSculpt, and I'm going to turn it into trying to look like it's something that's buried in a tree, which means I'm going to have to try to put like a live edge on one side and a live edge on the other side. And I just wanted to give credit to a friend of mine named Mike Bernasconi. He doesn't make YouTube videos or anything, but he devotes a lot of his time in helping others learn Aspire and other interesting techniques. He does a lot of hand carving and other things, and he's really helpful. He's part of a group. You may know Mark LindsayCNC, and Mark Lindsay has a membership group that several of us belong to, and Mike and others like to share knowledge back and forth. And the result of me being able to make these live edges and try to make them blend in is directly a result of Mike sharing this with the group, as well as he shared many other things. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Michael Bernasconi. With that, let's go ahead and get started with the rest of this video, and hope you enjoy it, and I hope you pick up some tips and tricks as you go through the video. The best way I know to make these round edges, or let's say to make this look like a live edge, is to use the two-rail sweep tool and build a piece right along the edge here, and then on this side that makes it look like a live edge. So that's what we're going to do next, use the two-rail sweep and figure out what we want to do with that. So let's take a look at how tall this or thick this model is, and also let's look at the design of the model. Is it pretty even across the top and the bottom? To me, it looks like it's a little narrower on this side than it is on this side and across. So I'm going to try something real quickly here. I'm going to try to take this model, and so I don't lose that, I'm going to make a copy of that model. So I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to click it off, and I'm going to use this model by itself. And I'm going to take, and I'm going to maybe do a little, let's try a tilt at first. And I'm trying to look at this angle right here, and I'm going to hit set. And I'm going to come over here on this corner, and I'm going to come across to this corner right here. And let's see what happens if we try to move it in this direction. I'm just eyeballing it really, but I'm trying to make it so it doesn't look so obviously different. Okay, hit close. Let me turn it around and look this way. And now this looks pretty even. And from this corner to this corner looks pretty even. Let's take a look here. I'm just trying to eyeball it, but from right here to over here looks like quite a bit, although this looks even right here. And this side, so it looks to me like it could use a little more in this direction. So let me come in here, and we got this here. Let's bake that right there for a second. What that will do is allow me to put more tilt or fade in there. So I'm going to do another tilt here for a second. I need to get a more square on look, so I'm going to go this way here, and then I'm going to look over here, come up here, hit tilt, and I'm going to want this side up. So this picture shows you, so I'm going to hit set, and I'm going to hit right over here, and I'm going to come across over to here, grab this, and I'm going to move it up just a little bit. And let's take a look at what we can see. So I think that's a little too much. It looks better. So for the most part, that looks pretty close. We're not going to get it exact because it's a piece of tree. So we're going to leave it that way for right now. And I'm going to go ahead and bake that. Hit close. And now I'm going to go back to the two-rail sweep that I talked about before. And to do that, to get a good picture of what I want to do with that, I want to take this here first, and I want to take it to the design. I'm going to come down here to this scale Z height of model, all visible. And what I'm really going to do is I'm trying to check the height of the model. And the height of the model right now is 1.146 inches. The total wood is 1.25, and so I need some meat under that. The model thickness I want to make about 1.125, but I want to be able to do more of an arch in here. So I'm going to move this model down, and it's probably easier for me now just to hit set exact height, and I'm going to go with 1 for now. So that's 1, hit apply. And now I know the model is 1 inch high. Hit close, I guess, hit OK. So now I know the model is 1 inch tall. And that is at the highest spot, which is going to be over in this area. So how tall the model actually is at the edges where I need it, I'll have to play with here, but I'm just going to make an assumption of it's 1 inch tall. So let's go to the 2D view, which is easier for me to see, and move it over here. And I'm going to create a couple extra layers. And I'm going to create a layer which is 2-rail sweep. 2-rail rails, I mean. And I'll make that red. And I'm going to add another layer, 2-rail profiles, or another layer. And with that, I'm going to leave it on 2-rail profiles for right now. And come over here, 2-rail profiles, and I'm going to make a rectangle over here on the side. And I want that rectangle to be 1 inch by 1 inch because that's the height at the tallest part. And I know on the sides it'll be a little less, but I'll play with that a little bit later. Hit apply, close, and then I'm going to hold the control key, grab it, and move it down. That'll create a copy, so I have this extra copy if I want to deal with it later. And the profile that I'm going to want for my 2-rail sweep is going to come down. I want to make it look like a live edge. And if it's not obvious while I'm doing it here, it will be in a minute or two. So I forgot to make that a different color so I can tell what I'm working with. I'll hit blue. And now what I want to do is I'm going to take the line tool and I'm going to start out. I've got snapping on. I'm going to take the line tool, get up here in the corner, come up here, and then back down here, let's say, and then snap here in the corner. Right click. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to hit node mode. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set the S key for smooth. And then what I can do is I can play with this Bezier keys to kind of make it look like a profile for live edge. So we're going to come up here. This is all in the eye of the beholder. And so it comes down just at the edge here. I want to kind of make that edge right there. All right, I think that looks okay. Now, if I'm using a 2-rail sweep, it's important to remember that I need a third leg. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this vector right here and this vector. I'm going to hit the node mode in, hit N again. Now we're in node mode. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to delete this span right here. I'm going to delete this span right here. I'm going to delete this span right here. And now that I've got those spans all deleted, I'm going to take and right click and I'm going to hit join vectors and I'm going to hit move endpoints. And that meant they joined right here and we have one vector. And now I'm going to turn off node mode. So now I've got my profile for a live edge. What I need to do is develop my rails. So I'm going to come up here to the rails, make that the live element. And I'm going to take the line mode. And I'm going to come over here. And in this case, I want to turn off the snapping. And so I'm going to go and grab, well, let me turn on the snapping for just a second. Turn on the geometry snapping. So it'll snap here in the corner. And now that I turned it on, I'm going to turn it back off. And I'm going to come over here to this side. And let's go right here to this side. Go to this side. And go right over here to this side. Hit the right to turn it off. Turn on node mode. And I want these center ones to be smooth. So I'm going to hit the smooth key. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at how that looks. I think that doesn't look too bad, actually, right there. Bring it over here just a little bit. And so now I've got one rail on my 2-rail sweep. So I'm going to go to offset. And if you look, it's got the green down here. So that means the car is moving down the road this way. So I want to be on the left side of that, inwards left. And I made the height of this 1 inch. So I'm going to use that as the starting point, hit offset, because that's the 1 inch from here to here. Hit close. And now I've got my 2 rails and I got my profile. And I'm going to create another one here. And I'm going to call that live edge, because that's where I'm going to store my live edge component. And let's make that, let's say, green for now. live edge is on. So now what I want to do is I want to go to my 2-rail sweep tool. I'm going to grab this first vector, and then I'm going to grab this vector, and I'm going to use that for the selection. And now that I have that selection, I'm going to grab the profile. I want it to go up like this, sweep between, and I'm going to say this is the left edge, and I'm going to hit apply. And when I look at the 3D view, I can see that that actually went in the wrong direction. So we're going to hit reset. And now I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to change the order in which I select the rails. I'm going to hit clear rails. I'm going to grab this rail. I'm going to grab this rail, use selection. Then I'm going to grab this vector, hit apply. And now, if we look at it, we can see that the high part of the rail is over here. Don't worry about this noise that's over here. We're going to take care of that in just a minute. So now we have the left edge, which looks good. If we go to the component tree, we can open up the components. One of the things that I want to do is take this left edge, and I'm going to change the combine mode of that to merge. And you can see we got rid of several of those artifacts that were there. And something's going on with my screen resolution here, so we're going to open that up a little bit. And so now what we have is the left edge. It's smooth right now. We'll take care of that in a minute. But what I want to do is it's way too high. And I remembered I said it might be high. So we're going to grab the edge here, and I'm going to start pulling it down slightly to try to get it as close as possible to this one over here. Okay, let's get it up a little bit here, right here. And we can see that if we look at it on this side, it's matching up not too bad. We're going to do some other things here in a second. And it's a little high up here. So we're going to use some of the other special tools like fade and tilt here to get this fine-tuned in as we move through this process. One thing I want to point out here is this is a process that requires patience and takes quite a bit of time. And as you work with the software, it starts to get better. For me, it still takes me a while to figure out what fade and tilt, which is going to work better and how they actually are working together. And so some of that I may take out of this video as I'm editing just to get it to go by faster. But recognize that as you use these tools, they'll come in quicker. And as we see, we've got over here, this edge is just a little high. And then if I turn this over here, this is a little high. We can also see that the edge here doesn't completely line up. That's going to be the easier one to take care of. So I'm going to play with a little bit more and see if I can do something. And in fact, what I'm trying to decide right now is if it would be better for me to move this piece or this piece, this component, and see what happens. So I'm going to try, you'll see me go back and forth and try a little bit of each. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one right now, and I'm going to try to use the tilt. And if you look at the tilt menu, what you can see is you see this little edge right here. So what this is telling you is it's tilting from this corner to this corner. And since I want this to move up a little bit, I'm going to try to tilt over here and see if I can raise the base right here. Sorry, I've got a cold. And it may or may not do what I want it to. So I'm going to hit tilt, and I'm going to hit set. And right here is where I can see it starting to be different. So I'm going to click right here. And then I'm going to come up here to this edge right up here, and I'm going to set the angle, and we'll see if that does what I want it to. Now what you can see is it moved this angle down, and that is not what I wanted. I wanted it just to build up. So that didn't do what I wanted it to. And let's go over here and go back the other way. If I go back here, you can see how that's what it was before. So it, instead of raising, it raised it, but it also tilted the bottom side down. So that is not what I wanted to happen. And I'm going to reset it. And I believe that's not going to do the trick either. So I'm going to come over here and come over here, and we'll hit angle this time and see what that does. And you can see that's not what I want to happen either. So once again, I'm going to take away the tilt by moving that off of there, hit close. I'm going to come over to this component, and let's see if I can use a fade on this component to take it from here down. So the fade is a little different animal, And instead of putting base height underneath it like it shows here, it actually fades the component. So I'm going to hit set, and I'm going to go from the high part right here. Now, until I bake this, if I move on, it won't hold. So I can look at this a little bit like this. And you know, it's hard to say, but I think that's probably not too bad right there. So I'm going to hit close on this, take a look at it, and see what it looks like as a model. Let's go back up to the top. And all in all, that's not looking too bad, I don't think. So I think that looks pretty good. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right here now, and I'm going to take this edge right here, and I'm going to move it out just a little bit so that it's just a, looks like it matches up better there. Trying to get a good angle at it. Okay, so I think I straightened up this edge here, and this isn't too bad. Now that I've got things lined up pretty good, I need to take care of this smoothness right here. And the way I'm going to do that is by using something called a texture brush. And let me turn this around here, and I'm going to go to top here, top, and I'm going to hit sculpting. I added a new layer here called sculpting for my sculpting brush. That's the active layer. I want to turn off the 2-rail profile and turn on the sculpting. And now I'm going to create a sculpting brush. So the way I'm going to do that is I want to create a vector first, and I'm going to make an oval sculpting brush. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to make a circle, something like that, and hit close. And I'm going to bring it over, let's say, into this area right here. So that's a sculpting brush. I'm going to come over to the components. I'm going to now create a new component, new level, insert a new level, and I'm going to call that sculpting. I'm going to duplicate this right here. And that duplicated one I'm going to bring up here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off for now. And I'm going to turn this off for right now. And so now I have this here. I have a vector around oval vector. Let me turn this off so you can see it. You can see the vector I've got right there. In fact, somehow I've got two of them, so I'm going to delete one of them. And take this back on. And we've got the vector right there. Blow this up. So I'm going to grab the vector. And then I'm going to grab the component. And I'm going to use the feature to delete everything outside the vector and keep what's in the vector. So I'm going to grab this one right here. And that's basically giving me a sculpting brush right there. But I want to get some extra texture in that. So let's take a look at the size of that. I'm going to click on here. And I'm going to take away some of the base. And bring that down. And I want to increase the scaling of that. So you can see that detail up here. That's what I'm going for. I'm going to bring down some base some more. Keep the detail right there. Take a look at how that looks. Okay. Let's do a little tilt here. Went the wrong way. There we go. I don't know why, but sometimes when I first put that sculpting brush, it wants to disappear, and then I turn it off and turn it back on, it comes back. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Let's go in here one more time, and I'm going to take away some of the base. Trying to keep the top, but just keep the base there. All right, so that's the brush right there. I'm going to change the name of this to YT Oval Bark. And then I'm going to take this here and I'm going to save as a sculpting brush. Save it. And now I have a sculpting brush. And you notice how it disappeared on me again? I'm going to turn it off. Then when I turn it back on, you'll see it comes back. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but I noticed that earlier. So now I have the sculpting brush right there. And in reality, I don't really need that brush in the tree anymore, but it doesn't hurt having it. So I'm going to turn this off, turn this one off. I'm going to turn on the owl with the chicks thing, and I'm going to turn on the, and I'm going to leave that down there, and I'm going to duplicate that again. May not be necessary. And I'm going to take this one, turn this off. I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to duplicate this one also. And that's going to stay down there. And I'm going to take and create a new level. And I'm going to say bark added. Rename bark added. And I'm going to take this left edge right up here. And I'm going to take this one right here. And I'm going to bring that up here. Everything else is turned off. I'm going to grab this right here. And I'm going to use the sculpting tool. Must be baked, so I'm going to go ahead and bake it. Hit OK. And now I'm going to go to the remove tool, use component brush, hit load brush, YT oval bark, open, hit merge, and I'll try a couple different examples here. So let's come up here. That's a maximum size of the brush. Strength, we'll see how that looks. Remove, merge, let's see what this looks like. Preserve transparency. All right, let's take a look at how everything's looking so far. I think everything's looking pretty good. Let me see. Let me get rid of a couple of the last ones. That blended in pretty good. Let's increase the strength just a little bit here on this one. And because I have preserved transparency on, it doesn't go past the edge of the component that I selected. So this actually looks pretty good for the most part. I like what I see right there, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep those changes. And I'm gonna move it around a little bit. I think it's actually looking pretty darn good, I think. Maybe I'll make this a little smaller. Not that small. And we'll try to go along the edge here. Remember, this is using remove and merge. Okay. Okay, that looks pretty good on that side. Hit OK. With that, we have one side of the tree finished, and the bark on there looks pretty good, I think. And then now we're going to go ahead and take this and make it symmetry, give it symmetry to go on the other side. So what I want to do now is go over to the components. I want to take this left edge baked that I've saved. I'm going to go to the design tab. I've selected this one here. I'm going to come over to the top here, and I'm going to flip about job center, create a mirrored copy, and see what other modifications I may need to do after that. So we're going to flip it right now. And now what we have, we go to top. You can see we have a very similar feature on the right side, but I just need to adjust it a little bit. So I'm going to hit close. Components. Rename this one. Right edge. And you can see this is a little bit low. So I'm going to try to give it a little base here, I think. So now this is a little bit high. See what we can do about taking a little bit away here. All right, overall, I think that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good for the most part right there, I think. And let's see here, what's this look like right here? We can add a little bit right there too. So we're gonna overall, with the roughness of the bark and everything, I think that looks pretty good right there. So let's save that. And the only thing I see is that it would be nice. Let's take a look, the toolpaths over here. Go to set. And what I'm doing is trying to see the total height of the model is 1.0217. And I want the total height of the model to be 1.125 about there when I'm done. And I would like a little bit more of an arc in the tree here. So again, let me hit save. My computer's acting up a little strange on the resolution. I was having some resolution issues with my Mac here, and so I decided to go ahead and shut down Aspire and restart it. And so we're going to continue on here. So as I said, I checked the thickness of the model is 1.02, and I want it to be about 1.125, and I want a little bit, I'm going to close this here, cancel. I want there to be a little bit more of an arc in here. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to use the two-rail sweep tool again for that. And to get to the right spot with the two-rail sweep tool, I'm going to create a vector around this area right here. And so I want to go ahead and add a new layer, and I'm going to say tree arc. And let me make that another color here. What color do I want to make that? We're going to make that, oh, this purple right here. And we're going to make that active. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to come to the components. And based on what I've got right here so far, I'm going to take these components and I'm going to turn all of this into a model. And so to do that, I come down here to this right here. It says create component from visible model. What that's going to do is take both of the live edges and this and create one model. So I'm going to do that right now. And now over here, components, you can see that we've got a composite model. And once again, I'm not sure why it's cutting it off over here on the edge. We'll bring this over here, and that's the model. And I'm going to add another layer, or level, I should say. I'm going to rename that composite model. I'll rename this composite model. And I'm going to take this up to this area here, uncheck this one, uncheck this down here. I don't need those components. And so now we're dealing just with this model. I'm going to come over here to design, and I'm going to go to 2D view because it's a little easier for me to see the vectors. And I've got composite model over here. I'm going to come down here to this one here, which creates a vector around the model. So I've got this here, create vector. And now you can see that I've got this vector. I don't need this. I'm going to ungroup this. Ungroup. All right, there's the vector. Turn off the model for a second. I'm going to turn off the sculpting brush. I don't need that. And I'm going to go ahead and create a rectangle that is the size of the tree. And let's make that a height of, how about 0.5 6 inches. Hit apply, hit close. And what I want is I want to make like a tree arc. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take and make an arc. There, right there, and bring it up here. We'll try that at first. So now this, of course, is my triangle. I want this one later for an outer profile, so I'm going to copy this to layer, new layer, outer profile. I'm going to keep this as the active layer, the tree arc. And so I'm going to turn off the outer profile. I don't need that right now. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to hit node select. I'm going to cut this vector here. Cut vector, cut vector, cut vector, cut vector. Take it out of node mode. Take this vector and delete it. Take this vector here. Delete it. Let me move this vector down out of the way for a second. And now for my 2-rail sweep, what I want to do is I want to come to a 2-rail sweep. I'm going to grab this vector here, use selection. They're both starting at the same spot and going in the same direction. That's what I want to see. I'm going to grab this vector right here, which is the arch. I'm going to come over here to components, turn the component back on, go to 3D view, and hit apply. And what you can see is it added that arc right underneath, giving this more of a height in the center. I'm going to hit close. Go to components. This is rename arc. And that arc, I want below the composite model. And so now you can see that we've got more of what looks like the trunk of a tree with this model. But because this went up a 1/2 inch, we didn't have a 1/2 inch of actual material that we could add to this center part. So let's see what we're going to do to try to get the model at the right height and not lose definition in this texture that I really want. So we're going to come over here. Let me hit save real quick. I'm going to come over here, set. And you can see that it says my model is too thick. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, first thing I'm going to say is I want the model 0.02 inches from the top. And I want to set the model at 1.125. That gives me 0.125 below it or thereabouts. I'm going to hit apply, hit close. And let's see what we've got with texture with it. I still like it. And I do. I think it looks pretty good. Well, I think everything is looking pretty good for the most part right now, but I do notice that when I brought these owls in from VistaSculpt, one of the things that came in were these kind of vacant eyes. They're kind of flat. Don't really look like pupils as far as I'm concerned. So I wanted to fix those before I start setting up the toolpaths. So I'm going to do that at this time. So what I'm going to do is use the sculpting tool. I'm going to click on here and I'm going to start sculpting these using the various tools, primarily the add and smooth tool. So we'll come over here. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go to the addition tool and I'm going to adjust this diameter here. And so I'm going to play with this diameter, give it a little strength, and I'm going to just start adding in here in the pupil. Again, this will get more intuitive as you start to work with these tools. And I may speed up this a little bit. You can see I'm just adding material right here instead of being nice and flat. And you can see I might have gone a little too much over here. So I'm going to go back over here to the smoothing tool, and you see it's smooth right there. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to work that. So see, I didn't want to make a major change, but you can see now, at least I think, it looks more natural. The pupil is further out and round. And so now we're going to come over here to this other one over here and do something similar. So you can see we just built up there so that we wouldn't have it look just like a flat piece. Now we'll come down to the chiclets and see if we can do something similar. Before I do, I kind of like the way those look for the most part. Do a little more smoothing over here. And so I'm going to go ahead and save that. So to keep that so that you don't have to erase everything every once in a while, you come over here and put keep. And now if I discard, it will be everything after that point. So come over here to this chick. And we want to reduce the diameter, I think, here on this one. Okay, just trying to take off that flatness. Oops. Then we hit Control Z a few times because I put too much on there. I thought I was over on smoothness and I was on addition. All right, I think that looks much better. And I'm going to go ahead and keep all those changes, hit OK. So now I'm ready to set up the toolpaths. So the first toolpath I want to set up is the roughing toolpath. So we're going to come over here to the roughing toolpath right here. And I'm going to use this tapered ball nose 46294. It's long enough to get down there into the all the way through. It's about a 1 1/4 inch tapered ball nose, a little bit more actually, but it's rated like at 1.25. I'm going to use the model boundary. That's this area right here. And I'm going to use a 3D raster. And because I'm trying to get all of this texture in, I'm going to actually use this ball nose. Sometimes I'll use a different bit. Let's see what the ball nose says relative to step over for this. 40%, that works for me. Hit OK, 0.04 allowance. And I'm going to use a raster angle of 90 degrees, which means I'm going to come up and down because that's with the grain of the wood. And I'm going to hit calculate. And that's what our, let's put this up top. Let's do a preview. So that's what that's going to look like. Hit close. Then we're going to go to a finishing toolpath. And originally I was exploring with various toolpaths and thought I would want two ball noses, two ball noses. But after I checked things out, I decided that I was going to get a faster carve with just one ball nose, and it was going to turn out pretty good. So I ended up taking away this tapered ball nose and just going with this tapered ball nose. This is a Skinny Jenny from Cadence manufacturer from Cody. And that, I think that's going to work pretty good. I'm also going to go to the model boundary. I'm going to go 0.125. By the way, I went 0.25. I'll show you that in a minute. On the boundary offset, I'm going to use a raster. I'm going to use 45 degrees. I'm going to calculate that. As a reminder, this model is 1.125 and the material is 1.25, so it's not going all the way through here as we go through here, but I'll check one more time. Let me recheck this roughing. Yeah, 0.25, I was just checking that. And then I want to come up here to set, and I wanted to make sure, see, the gap above the material is high, so I've got to redo this because I really want the gap to be 0.02 up there. I always have to recheck because the reason you make it not all the way to the top is because you want, in case there's any difficulty with flatness or stuff, you want to be able to make sure you're actually getting a carve. And so now we've got 0.12 below, which is, slightly under a 1/4 inch. One thing. So we got 0.1052 here. Material underneath it. That looks good to me. I'm going to hit OK. And when I do that, it's going to tell me to recalculate. And I'm going to say yes, because those were calculated before I checked that. I always make it a habit of going back and checking that as right after I've set up my toolpath, just to make sure I didn't jump over it. And I did in this case. All right, everything's calculated successfully. Let's take a look at that. And we're at preview, reset preview, and we're going to preview the toolpaths. So that's the roughing pass. And there is the 16th inch taper ball nose, and I think that's looking pretty darn good. And I think that looks great. So now what we need to do is be able to cut it out. And so hit close. What we can do now is I can come up here to the profile toolpath. And I'm going to hit, let's see here. I want to go all the way down to the bottom, Z. I like to use that standard. I'm going to select a bit that will go all the way through. It's a downcut bit that I use. It's downcut right here. I'm going to put cutout profile. And it's going to be outside. I don't need an allowance. I'll do a separate last pass, although it's not really necessary, because for the most part, it's going to be pretty deep. So I would probably edit the passes here so that I don't have to have 5 passes. Let's try to make it in 3 or so, because in the end, it's the tapered ball nose for the roughing pass came over by 1/4 inch, and that other bit is going to come in here. So we're going to be in pretty good shape. 3 might be too aggressive if it's getting on the edge here. So let me make that 4. Hit OK. Outside, do separate last pass, and I'm going to want to add tabs. The tabs I'm going to want to add 0.5, 0.125 thick. That looks good. I'm going to edit those. Okay, it wants vector, so I'm going to come up here to the vector, hit close vector, associate with, and I've got it turned off, so I need to turn it back on. Remember, I made that outer profile vector before. And hit selector now. Associate with, outer profile, close. Let's see if we can see it better in the 2C. It's that one right there. Edit tabs. And I'm going to put 4 tabs. Add tabs. And I'm going to have a tab here, a tab here, a tab here, and a tab here. Because the size of the wood, there won't be much left on these sides. So we'll get rid of this tab. We'll get rid of this tab. Hit close. Hit calculate. Here, I like to add a ramp 0.5, twice the diameter, and do a separate last pass of 0.02. Calculate. And we'll preview that one. And you can see we cut it out, and we have tabs there on each side of the owl. And we're pretty much set to go cut this thing at the CNC. So let's get out there and do it. Well, at this point in time, we've finished the design that we need right over here on the side of me here. And we're kind of long in the tooth. We're over 50 minutes so far, and I imagine some people have decided to move on that weren't as interested in learning the techniques, and I imagine some are just plain out bored after this amount of time. So instead of belaboring this and taking it on to the actual carving and showing how I did that, I'm going to make that a separate video. So stand by and wait for that video. It won't be long, and I'm going to put the carving of the owl and the chicks in a separate video so that this one doesn't keep dragging on. I do hope you learned a couple things in this video that you may not have known before in using Aspire. Some of the key things that I actually learned when I was going through this process and from Mike was how to add to the model that looked like just an STL and turn it into a live edge. So I created a live edge using the 2-rail sweep. So if you haven't known how to do that, the 2-rail sweep is such a valuable tool. Learn how to use the 2-rail sweep. The next thing that I learned about and was emphasized by Mike was the power of sculpting brushes. And in this case, I created a sculpting brush right from the bark that was already on the STL that I created, and that gave me the ability to better match the texture on that piece of material. Another important factor is to make sure that your model it fits within the material thickness that you're using, in this case 1.25, and check before you set up your toolpaths, or once you set up your toolpaths, go to the set button and make sure that the model is sitting high enough that you're going to have some backing. I've actually carved through my models before and ended up ruining a perfectly good carving because I had the model sitting on the bottom, which means then there's no thickness underneath it. Now, in this case, it probably wouldn't have been as big a deal because of it's so thick, but I just wouldn't want to take a chance as I've done in the past. So I always make the model slightly less thick than the actual thickness of the wood. And I set the model so that it's about 0.02. I know that Kyle Ely likes to use 0.03 in a recent lesson I had with him from the top of the model, and that allows for any undulations. You may have undulations if you didn't surface the top, and make sure that if you have a round, it doesn't end up getting flat. So those are a couple key tips that I wanted to emphasize when you're taking a model, any STL, and bringing it into Aspire to manipulate. You'll also notice that I had to go in and use some of the smoothing tools and sculpting tools on the model to add to things like the owls and the chiclets' eyes. One of the things is you won't get a perfect model out of VistaSculpt in most cases, so you're going to have to go in and spend a little time trying to learn those sculpting tools and the fade and tilt tool. They will come in handy. With that, I do hope that you were able to pick up how I was using those tools in this video, and if you have any questions, just rewind or go backwards in the video and look for those. I'll try to put something in the table of contents that talks about where I'm using those tools, and so it can be easier for you to navigate there. By the way, if you're interested in having a copy of this model for yourself so you can carve your own Owl and Chiclets, I'll go ahead and put a STL file on my website so that you can get a copy of it, and I'll list it down in the video description with a link so that you can go right to my website and get that file if you'd like to cut it yourself. Then you can take that STL and resize it to whatever size you want and not have to go through the full design process. With that, have a great day. I hope you're taking some time to use your software and tools to get some enjoyment out of your hobby or your profession. And again, as I asked in the middle of the video, you know what I need to keep this channel going. I need to be able to continue to grow it. Doesn't have to be fast, but just organically. And if you like what I'm doing, make sure you give me a like, comment, share the video, and then subscribe. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign out for now, and be on the watch out for the next video where I am carving the actual carving. And when I get that done, I'll make sure I put it in the end card over here on the side of the video.